Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
I'm Christian Stefanisi. You're watching Disclosures of the Third Kind. Some of the strongest Roswell evidence was not the witnesses, but the fragments still being found in the ground decades later. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Disclosures of the Third Kind. This is going to be episode 6, the metallic fragments found on the Plains of San Agustin and how they relate to the Roswell case. Tonight I want to look at one of the most important and most overlooked parts. It's the material itself. Because for all the talk of witness testimony, cover-ups, military intimidation and recovered craft, the question still remains. What was the debris actually made of? One line of research that deserves serious attention comes through Frank Kimbler, a metallurgist who went out to the gouge site with a biologist to search for remaining fragments connected to the crash. Now, this is the Roswell crash site, not the Plains of San Agustin. I'll come back to the Plains of San Agustin after I've discussed the Roswell crash case itself and what's been found at the gouge site. Now, a dig had already been conducted there in 2002, but the material recovered from that earlier excavation was never allowed to be fully tested. Instead, it was stored away, effectively removed from deeper public examination. Now, I will add, ladies and gentlemen, that when Frank Kimbler uncovered his metal pieces and he made it broadly publicised what he'd found, the FBI actually interjected and were keeping a watch on him, and I've got documents to prove that from the Black Vault, which is really interesting. Why would you be interested in some metal that some researchers found at the Roswell crash site if it didn't have extraordinary properties, which it did? We'll come back to that in a bit. So that alone should raise some questions and some eyebrows, because if the material was ordinary, why not let it be fully analysed, and why would you have the FBI following Kimbler's every move after he's announced what he's found? Why keep it out of proper scrutiny? Kimbler's later work pushed the question further. By going back to the site itself and looking for surviving fragments, he reopened the issue of whether physical evidence from Roswell still remained in the ground. And that matters, because the Roswell case has too often been pushed into the realm of memory, testimony and official denial. While the physical evidence has either disappeared, been dismissed or been locked away, Roswell is not the only place where unusual material has been reported. Researcher Art Campbell also conducted important fieldwork on the Plains of San Agustin, the area many believe was the site of the first Roswell crash. So he conducted his research between 1995 and 2006, so a good 11-year period he was out there looking for this stuff. What's really interesting is I've got his book actually with me here, and it actually details his findings. He went to 15 different scientists, ladies and gentlemen, 15 different scientists who tested this metal. And I will add that normal kitchen foil, if we look at the argument of it just being normal kitchen foil is made of 3 properties, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll read Art Campbell's research now. So if you were to look at normal kitchen foil, you would find that tin foil is actually made of aluminum, and that's 98.5% to 99.5% pure. I'll give you the tests that Art Campbell and his 15 different research and scientists came back with the laboratory for, and it's very interesting. It's 56 different types of metals that were found. Those range from aluminum, iron, silicon, calcium, manganese, magnesium, potassium, titanium, copper, phosphorus, zinc, sodium, vanadium, chromium, barium, nickel, gallium, strontium, zirconium, lead, boron, cerium, tin, cobalt, rubidium, molybdenum, lanthanum, yttrium, neodymium, lithium, thorium, uranium, hafnium, arsenic, tungsten, niobium, gadolinium, gold, praseodymium, excuse me for my pronunciation with these, dysprosium, beryllium, samarium, bismuth, yttrium, erbium, iodine, cadmium, cesium, germanium, silver, antimony, thallium, holmium, europium, selenium, thulium, platinum, and mercury. Now, if that's normal kitchen foil, I'll eat my hat with salt and pepper, because that's certainly not what you find in normal everyday kitchen foil. And again, that's the metallic shards that he found, the ones that you could wad up in your hand and basically wouldn't cause a dent on it whatsoever, the same as what Jesse Marcel would describe. Now, that's fascinating. And again, Linda Moulton Howe has done some research, and she was given a piece that was made of pure bismuth and magnesium. And it's interesting to note that bismuth and magnesium are both on the list of what was found in the metal that Art Campbell had found at the Plains of San Agustin. So, like I've just explained there, what makes Art Campbell's work so interesting is that he was not just repeating old stories. He was looking at the site itself, the terrain, the placement of objects, what was found in the pit area, and whether the material discovered there could reasonably have arrived by accident. According to Campbell's research, a number of items turned up at the site over the years. Some of them were clearly ordinary: bottle caps, brown glass believed to be from beer bottles, charcoal, a flashlight battery, animal bones, scraps of aluminum, and other pieces of later human activity. But mixed in with those ordinary items was something much more significant, that foil-like material that I've just explained there and then. Again, Campbell wrote that ICP-MS isotope analysis of some of the foil indicated that it was unlikely to have come from Earth. That's significant, that statement, there and then. Again, a lot of the materials found in there, a lot of the metals are of earthly origin, but we're not saying that. This could be other metals on other planets. We're not saying that they've got different metals to us. It's a remarkable claim, and one that immediately sets this material apart from ordinary litter or known scrap. Campbell was also careful to note that not everything found at the site was mysterious. Again, he found bottle caps, bottles, glass, bits and bobs that don't really add into the case, but these metal shards as where it sits. And I think what he's explained in his book is that there were constant visitations throughout the 40s, late 40s and early 50s to the site. There were K-ration can tabs and things found there too. So there must have been a military presence there, just making sure that all the material had been found and that nobody was taking a look at the site. So it looks like there was a heavy presence there of military individuals just keeping tabs on the site. Campbell also found evidence that, like I said, that people had returned to the site over time. He noted charcoal and bottle caps under the cross area that he discovered, suggesting that a fire had been made there and drinks consumed. He argued that these items were unlikely to have been brought in by water because water tends to disperse objects and not concentrate them in the way that they were found. He went further still. He examined the lichen growing on the cross and had it identified later by a BLM botanist. So he's really uncovered every stone here. He also looked at the placement of the cross, the weathering of the notch, the bottle remains, the red jacket material and the surrounding soil conditions. Campbell concluded that the cross may have been moved into the gap area later, possibly in the late 50s or early 60s, but this does not explain away the deeper significance of the material found in the pit and arroyo. In fact, he argued the opposite, that the site showed signs of repeated human visitation after the event, as though people had come back there more than once, as I explained. Now think about that. If that is true, then the site was still producing unusual fragments decades after the original event, like they wanted to check that they got everything. That is not what you would expect from a simple one-off scattering of ordinary rubbish. And this is where the debris question becomes so important, because once you get beyond the headlines and beyond the mockery, The Roswell case keeps returning to the same central problem. Material has been found. It has been described as light, strong, resistant to damage, and unlike anything witnesses had seen before. Jesse Marcel, Frankie Dwyer Rowe, Dan Dwyer, Major Edwin Easley, etc. Fragments were reportedly recovered from more than one site. Testing was restricted, delayed, or incomplete. And the more closely researchers looked, the less convincing the official explanation had become. And again there, the 4,602nd Air Intelligence Service Squadron is believed to have been part of the recovery of the craft, and it was a lowboy trailer, 18-wheeler, that collected the craft. I will provide at the end of this video the documentation showing that the FBI had a watch on Frank Kimbler and his material. Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Please like and subscribe for more videos like this. Yeah, the truth is out there. Follow me for more. This has been Disclosures of the Third Kind. Ladies and gentlemen, are the documents as supplied by the Black Vault under a Freedom of Information Act request. Again, they detail the Bureau of Land Management keeping tabs on Mr. Kimbler and his discovery at the gouge site just outside Roswell. They've just got a few notes there, who he is, an archaeologist. So yeah, it's quite interesting. Again, the Bureau of Land Management, it's suspected that these were the FBI sort of keeping tabs too under the Bureau of Land Management, with aid from the FBI, sorry. But yes, let me know your thoughts, folks, and stay tuned for more. You've been watching Disclosures of the Third Kind.